Hello and welcome to the Devon Learning Recovery course to make paper flowers. This simple but effective tutorial will show you all you need to know to make some really nice 3D flowers. First of all, you'll need a 30cm piece of wire and 4 15cm pieces of wire. These are going to make up the petals. And then we need another 2 pieces that are 7.5cm each. First of all, we take one of the pieces of wire, fold it in half. This is florist's wire, so it bends really easily. Make a nice point at the top if you'd like a pointy one like my blue flowers. And then twist the two ends together several times. Open it up into the shape you want. And we need to do that with the other 4 pieces of wire too. Don't worry about making all the pieces of wire exactly the same petal shape, because in nature petals are all slightly different shapes and it makes it look a bit more naturalistic. Now we've got our long piece, so I'm going to fold that in half. It's a bit springy. And then I'm going to fold 1/2 in half. So this is going to make a petal shape the same as the other petals, and then it just leaves us a nice long piece of wire at the end so that we can make the flower up. That piece of wire will connect all the petals together. And there we go. We've got our 5 petal shapes. So now we take a piece of tissue paper. Tissue paper is really simple to cut because it's so nice and thin, so I've folded it over a few times and I'm cutting pieces of tissue paper that are a bit bigger than my petal shape. There we go. Okay, so I've got my glue. I've watered this PVA glue down just a little bit so it flows nicely. And I've got a thin piece of cellophane here that I'm going to put down because it stops the tissue paper sticking to your surface. And then just put a light layer of glue on. I've got some on my thumb. There we go. And we take our piece of wire, our first petal shape, just pop that on so that the whole petal shape is on the tissue paper. And then just use your brush to gently flip over the edges of that tissue paper. I think I've made this one a tiny bit too wet, but it doesn't matter because we're going to use several layers. Just use your brush to take it over the top. There we go. There's one layer of tissue paper done. So now I'm going to put on a second layer. Now then, as you can see there, the tissue paper's fallen off in that corner, so don't worry about it. This is why we do a few layers. So again, just fold it over. You need a lot less glue this time because it's soaking up all the glue from the first layer. And again, just use your brush. Just push it all over, squish it down. Tissue paper's so fine that that'll all knit together really well. And then we do it again with the last layer of tissue paper. I'm really trying to soak up all the glue now, so I'm using my brush less. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it goes down the wire twisted bit at the end, because that just makes that the same colour. And if you've got a bit too much bunched up at the top there, you use a bit of glue to stick it down or a pair of scissors to snip off the top. Yeah, so I'm just going to get rid of this excess tissue paper here. There we go. Just make sure it's all nicely down. And then we can leave that to dry. And we do all the rest with the same process. So now our petals are dry, we can make them into the flower shape. So firmly but gently, you don't want to put your finger through them, but the petals are quite, now the glue's dried, they're quite sturdy. Anyway, take care and just bring them all together, bunch them all up. And then with that longer wire on that one petal, we take that and we'll nice and firmly twist it together. There we go. Twist it around a few times and then tease your individual petals out. They're really flexible now, and one of the nicest parts of this activity, I think, is shaping the petals at this point and really giving them a bit of 3D. They kind of really come to life. Obviously, you could add more petals to make a sort of a denser flower. There we go. Okay, so to decorate the middle of this one, I've used some of my children's glittery nail varnish, which I think looks pretty effective. You can also take a darker shade of tissue paper and rip some strips of that off and then glue that into the sort of centre fanning outwards of your petals from the middle outwards. And another thing you can do, if you want to get that kind of lily effect or a heavily pollinated flower effect, is to just dot some spots of a Sharpie or a felt tip into the middle of your flower, and that gives that effect of that pollen falling off the long stamens into the flower. Now then, for flowers like this, we still need to make the stamens that stick out. So we'll do that now. Take those two shortest 7.5 centimetre pieces of wire. Here we go. Now we're just going to fold over the ends. This wire is really flexible, so you shouldn't find it too difficult. And they not only take the sharp edge off the wire, but also give that impression of those heads of the lily stamens with the orange pollen. And then we're going to bend that in half. Do the same to the other one. And now we're going to take that behind the petal. We're going to do this with the other one as well. And just take that behind the petal, right at that thinnest point of it where it meets up with the other petals. It's a little bit fiddly. And just twist that over. And there we go. And do it again with the other piece of wire as well. Okay, so we've made our flower now. We need to make our leaf. We're going to leave a slightly longer bit of wire at the end. So make a leaf shape, but don't make it quite halfway. Make it sort of 2/3 and leave a third of a little tail of wire. And then just like we did with the petals, we're going to take the glue and do exactly the same thing. You can make as many leaves as you want for the stems of your flowers. And again, we just do that process we did before, just folding over the tissue paper, getting ourselves a bit gluey. It's probably a good idea if you find it a bit frustrating having gluey fingers to stop and wash your hands a couple of times, or have a cloth or I would say a piece of tissue, but you can get a bit stuck to that. You can just regularly wipe off your hands. This is a bit of a messy activity, this one. But that cellophane stops it sticking to whatever surface you've got underneath. There we go. So I'll just fold that over. Make sure it's all tucked in. And again, we leave that to dry, just like we did with the petals, and make as many as you want. So now we need to make our stalk. I've got a chopstick here. I'm just going to take a piece of tissue paper, and my bits of tissue paper aren't quite as long as my chopstick. You could use a skewer for barbecues. There we go. You could use an old knitting needle. So I'm just going to take a second. Oh, I'm getting all stuck to the tissue paper. Okay. And it's really nice using paper to cover your stick because it gives it that nice same texture that the flowers have got. There we go. And we just leave that to dry now. So now we've got our stem. Attach the flower to the top by winding around that nice long bit of wire we've got left at the end of the flower, and connect your leaves wherever you want them on the stem just by winding those round. And then I'm just covering up the joins where we've wound those wire tails around the stem with a nice piece of tissue paper and a bit of glue, just so you can't see where the wire's been. Now, if you didn't want to make a flower on a stem, you could connect all of the flowers together on a piece of ribbon or string and create a garland. This would be a really nice gift to drop off to a friend's doorstep. There we go. You can experiment with colours, flower types, just by changing the petal. You've got the basis now to make whatever flowers you like. And we will see you in the Zoom tutorial